But Linda's presented with BoulderNet before, and we appreciate you coming back and offering the wisdom that you're about to give to us, and just an opportunity to really tap into. I love the topic, midlife crisis of sorts of job search. So, Linda, thank you for being here with us, and we'll let you go.
Okay.
And Linda, I have made you a co-host, so you should be able to share. There you go. Beautiful.
Okay.
One quick comment that was in the chat earlier, Linda, is your volume seems to be a little bit lighter. I don't know if there's an adjustment that you can make on your end so we can hear you better.
Sure. Hold on just a second. Let me go and do that. How's that? Is that better?
Yeah, that's a little better.
Okay, let me move it up even more. How's that one? Can everybody hear that?
Sounds the same.
Sounds the same?
Yeah. But I think just for the sake of time, we might just want to proceed forward and just listen closely.
Okay. And I'm sorry if it's not there. Hold on just a second here. Can you all see that screen that says midlife career crisis?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yep.
Hold on just 1 second here. Okay. So one of the things that I want to talk about, and thank you so much for inviting me, is this situation I call midlife career crisis. It's not something that many people even talk about, although I'm listening to everybody. We've all been through it. I've been through it. I was laid off from a long-term job, had not expected that at all, and had to decide what to do in the middle of a recession. I've been through all of those kinds of things. So when you don't know what you're doing in a or going to be doing in a midlife career crisis, you are frozen often and you are not sure what the next steps are. So it's kind of in the stage where people are starting to feel in the middle of their career, typically at least worked 10 years or more, feeling disengaged and misaligned with their career path. It can be a lack of enthusiasm. It can be challenges in the job, an inability to focus at work, that perhaps not being able to get excited about the things that you've been able to do before. And the symptoms can be varied depending upon the person, but it definitely can impact all parts of your life. And this could be related when you are working somewhere and then going off to trying to figure out what you want to do next, or like all of you are, that I hear anyway, are looking for a position and want to go on and do next. So this entire process will work for you as well. I talk a little bit about career stages because at the beginning, when you're 18 or so, you kind of graduate, jump into a job, learn the ropes, get promoted, earn more and more money, perhaps face hurdles and office politics, whatever it is, toxic work culture, etc. And they start your career without ever thinking about it. Most people get out of college, or even when they're going to college or looking at jobs they want to do, they never think about it. They just want a job that gets them money. That's the whole idea. The problem is most people stay in those kind of jobs, whether they really like it or not. And it ends up about the time between 30 and 40, they're building a family, they're working on work-life balance, they're putting together some side hustles, and they start feeling burnout. And they start seeing layoffs and that kind of thing. And that can happen all the way to 60 with frustration and that midlife crisis that everyone talks about. And then, of course, at 60, you can hit retirement, which is where I am, but I'm actually not retired. Money, health, and learning that you're probably going to have 30 more years of living to do. So what are you going to do in that period of time as well? So when I'm talking about a midlife crisis, I'm talking about things like persistent unhappiness or frustration, or just don't feel like you have a purpose. You're not making a positive difference. I said office politics and burnout and financial issues, health, family dynamics, quiet quitting. We all are somewhat familiar with that, with people that are staying on the job for a while, but just enough to get the job done until they find something else. And what I find in the years I've worked with people is when you get a new job, there is a strong learning curve that goes way up in the very beginning. And then it levels off when you've learned things and you're healthy, working in the job, and you're looking at things that you're doing, and it's a great atmosphere and you're still learning and things. It kind of balances out. But then it can become something that is very monotonous, and it starts to be boring, and you don't have any challenges. So it starts to move downward in that job. And when it starts to do that, you need to do a couple of things. Either you go and find some more things to learn, different things to do in your current job, or you start looking for something else to do, because it will only go downward at that point in time. You will begin to feel like you don't know where you want to go, but you don't feel like you can leave. You've got family and all of that kind of thing, but you need to make that particular choice just to make sure that either you continue and get some more education, some more training, some more exciting things to do, or you go find something else that will give you that interest again in doing that. I didn't mention at the beginning, but well, I'll wait until the end to take any kind of questions. So please write down questions if you have them. When I talk about careers and what you're looking for, what is a career? In my opinion, it's 4 legs of a table. It's strengths, who you are; skills, what you know how to do; motivation, where your interests lie; and purpose, how do you make a difference? Each one of those are equally as important when you're looking at your next career, when you're trying to decide what you want to do next. And oftentimes I have people that are moving from one entire career to another. Someone who's been an attorney for years and doesn't want to be an attorney any longer. Where do they go at this point in time? Their whole life has been focused and trained on one particular area. So I start with people when I'm working with them with strengths. And then we discuss skills, and we also go to motivation, and we go to purpose. All of those need to be aligned, because it's extremely important when you're starting to look at actually now what you want to do next. So what are the next steps? Well, obviously developing really clear strengths. We in the Western world do not talk about strengths. It's considered bragging. I'm really creative. Someone thinks you're really bragging about those things. And so a lot of times people don't learn and don't know their strengths at all. I've had many, many people in mid and upper management who have never, ever done anything to understand what their strengths are. So that's a really important first step. Then defining skills, what your transferable skills are if you're going into another field, or even what your skills are now in the field that you want to do. And then there's motivation, your current interests. What gets you up in the morning? If you don't have that motivation, that job is not going to stay exciting. It's not going to stay something that you really want to gain something from. And then there's purpose. Finding out how you make a difference. The difference could be that you're making a difference by making money. Certainly you can do that. But most of the time when you're taking a job, you're looking at something where you're looking at, what am I going to do that makes a difference, a positive difference here? And my final topic that I weave into all of this is something you've heard, I'm sure, a lot of recently: mindfulness. How do you think about these things? Because I think it was Tanya, perhaps, or I think Tanya was talking about the fact that she felt very uncomfortable going into an interview, and she had been deflated because obviously she didn't feel like she was doing something right. Not always is that the case. Somebody has already decided what they're looking for, who they're going to hire, or what they want to do. I know someone here in Denver who is an HR person who was getting ready to be married, and the day before his wedding, his soon-to-be wife left with his best man. And his soon-to-be wife's name is Karen. And he has refused for 7 years to hire anyone named Karen. So just understand that a lot of the things, you only have control over the things that you are handing out there. Your resume, the way you talk about yourself, which we're going to talk about, and how you present the kind of things that you're interested in, why you want to take this particular job. But how they respond to it is not something that you have control over in most cases at all. That's something that is going on in their lives. So having the idea that you're going in with the best presentation you can and who you are, and talking about how this relates to the job you're looking at in a very business-like way will be very helpful. And when you talked about learning how to interview, that is part of the interview process. It is very important to do that. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. So let's talk about strengths. I always tell everybody who before what. Understand who you are, being able to talk about it in a business sense before you decide what you want to do. It's a critical piece to do. And the way I have people do it is take Strength Finders 2.0 by Tom Rath. It's a book you can buy on Amazon. It's about $20, or Target, that sort of thing. It has the 34 strengths of Strength Finders in there and good descriptions on each one. And then at the back, there's a coupon you can use to go take the assessment. Takes about 20 minutes, and immediately you'll get the results of your 5 top strengths based on your responses. So you'll get an idea of that from the very beginning. Then I ask people to take the VIA character, and I have this website here. I also have a handout, 3 pages of handouts that you're going to receive after this particular presentation that has a lot of this information on there. So the VIA character is also an assessment. It is free, developed by the University of Pennsylvania and the University of Michigan, and it talks about internal strengths. Strength Finder is about external strengths. So the internal ones are spirituality and caring and kindness and love, things that are hard to talk about in an interview. So I have developed a document that you will receive that takes these VIA. If you take this assessment, it takes your results and translates them into words you can use when you are applying to a job. So you can now translate those, because it's very important to define the strengths that are very unique to you. When someone asks a question of you, they are asking in the very beginning, tell us something about yourself. Everyone hates that question. I'm going to show you how it's really easy to answer. And that has to do with understanding what your strengths are. So this is a little exercise that you're not doing right now, but you can do. Go and take 1 or more of those assessments, and then select 4 or 5 strengths that you want to talk about from either assessment you take, and write a paragraph about each one. And the paragraph needs to include a description of the strength in your own words and how you use it with another person. Then once you've written these 4 or 5 paragraphs, then I want you to go back to each paragraph and highlight between 2 and 5 words in each paragraph that you absolutely want to say about yourself, how to describe yourself. I'm going to show you a little example here. This is someone, one of their strengths came out to be strategic. So what they wrote is, being strategic is one of my core strengths. When faced with any given scenario or challenge, I can sort through the clutter to spot relevant patterns and issues and envision alternative scenarios to plan and prepare. I look at the bigger picture to see logistically how all the steps or components play out, and if there's any foreseeable snags along the way. So then I had this person highlight 6 words that they really wanted to be sure and say. So try to imagine this person is in front of someone interviewing, and the first question is, so tell us something about yourself. Well, they would have these words that are written at the top of their resume or their sticky notes around the outside of their computer so that they can easily glance at them as they're talking about themselves. Well, one of the things you'd want to know about me is I'm very strategic. I can sort through things to determine the patterns, and I can envision alternative scenarios. I do look at the bigger picture. Great way to talk about yourself. Explains who you are, which is what they're asking for, not what you know how to do. tell me about yourself. And if you do that with all 4 strengths, you can give them a great idea who you are. You also can say, in this position, you're looking for somebody who is looking for strategy. And this is something I bring to the table. So it's a really healthy way and important way to talk about yourself. Not only that, you have questions that will say, what will someone else say about you? Use these same words. What would your boss have said about you? Same words. What are you going to bring to this job? Same words. I love the question, what are you going to bring on your first day? A lunch? I don't know. But you can use these same words to answer that kind of thing. Of course, what are your strengths? You can use these same words to talk about that. There's at least 5 or 6 questions in an interview that these words really work very well for. It's a great way to have ways of talking about who you are. You can also use these words on LinkedIn, use them on your resume, use them, obviously, as we said, on your interviews. So next we want to talk about skills. What do you know how to do? There's skills from moving from the military, for instance. People are saying, I was in the military for 20 years. I don't know what I do. Well, you understand time, you understand leadership, you understand motivation, you understand structure. There's many, many things you understand. And another handout that I'm giving you is a list of about 60 different categories that you can look at in things that you know you're able to do. Let's say you've been home for a while or you've been laid off for a while. This is very common right now that with COVID, we're still running through this whole thing, and people who had 5 different jobs at all with COVID and were laid off from all of them. We have all of that happening. So if your resume looks what you think is sketchy, it's not. People like to see things you've moved in various areas. In fact, I recently worked with 2 different people who had been in their organizations for around 16 to 20 years. And they'd moved way up in the organization, but they wanted to do something different. So they were both out there interviewing. And they both went to their first interview that they had gotten after we'd been working together. And the first question that both of them got was, why did you stay at your company so long? It is beginning to look about the fact that people who move every 7 years or so are considered to be interested in whatever is happening now. They've never gotten into one pattern. They've never decided one way to do things. So it's really interesting that parents are saying to students coming out of college, well, you've got to find a job and stay there. Not true. The students that are graduating now will probably have between 5 and 6 careers in their lifetime, meaning they'll probably only stay 7 or 8 years in any job. And companies are very impressed if you've stayed in that and done several things. So don't feel bad if you've had a number of things going on. But again, if you're moving from being home with your family, you're saying, well, I have people tell me all the time, I haven't been doing anything. And I say, okay. So you've been sitting in your bedroom with the door shut in your pajamas. Because if you haven't, you've been doing something. You've been putting together your family trips, which is, being creative in coming up with how to plan a planning type of things. You've put together your budgets. You've put together things with your children and planning things, or things you've been doing with your organization or volunteering. There are a number of different things you do. And again, the document I give you has a lot of categories in there, but it's important on your resume to put down Sollars. I'll use my example, Sollars LLC or Sollars organizations, usually what I put. Underneath it, you put a title. Pick a title. Vice president, senior vice president, senior program management, whatever you want to put in there that you feel you've done a lot of. And then you put bullet points under there of all the things that you've done. Resumes are about work. They're not about paid work. So being able to understand the skills you've learned from being at home with family, taking care of parents, taking care of children, or being out of a job for a while. What have you learned from those skills? Well, you're looking for a job, so you have to learn some organizational skills. You've got to learn some time management skills because you don't want to stay on the computer all day looking for jobs. You have to understand communication skills. and coordination skills, and being a customer friendly, and all of those kinds of things you've learned in research is another big thing you've learned when you've been looking for jobs. So there's a lot of categories you could put in there that you've done. Again, volunteering for friends or doing anything like that. There are skills you've learned from that, and you can put that right on your resume in doing that kind of thing. I don't know if most of you are familiar with ONET, but ONET is a place you can go and you can just put ONET, O-N-E-T, when you're searching, and it will come up with a page that it was built by the federal government, so it has a lot more things than is necessary on the page. But right in the middle, you can put a job description in there, and then you can put, and it will come up with a whole lot of things familiar with that. If you want to put in program management, it will, the top one will be mostly the program management you have. You click on that, and it will give you a number of different categories on how you talk about your skills, how you look at your skills. There is, that will bring you the summary, and you'll notice that on the left-hand side. Right next to the summary at the top of the page, it says details. Click on the detail one, and it will give you even more ways to talk about yourself. I have people go in and use it all the time, putting their resume together, because the statements they have in there in a variety of different ways are very, very helpful. They also have a section on what your values are, so you can certainly use those in there. So that is a great way to go and begin to look at these kinds of things. Those are your skills. We're going to talk about resumes in just a minute, but recognizing your skills is very important. Then what motivates you? Are you motivated by people more? Are you motivated by process more? People who like process doesn't mean they don't like people, but they much prefer to do the process type of things. People who like people would prefer to do the people things, marketing, sales, that sort of thing. Process sometimes is program management, mechanical engineering. Sometimes the process piece of it is interesting, just so you know those things, what motivates you. What I've put on here are 7 different words that you can look at to motivate you. So as I talk about each one of those, I want you to think about the fact, is this something I enjoy? I don't want to hear, well, I've done it a long time, or yes, I know how to do it. Is this something I might enjoy? I may not have done it, but it's something I'm interested in. You'll typically only have 1 or 2 of these at most that you're really interested in. So if you like to analyze and strategize, you're looking at big picture. You want to say what the big picture is on something, you know, what we're looking at to decide what our company's values are and that sort of thing. You're analyzing what something has been done in the past and coming out with a strategy that might be a year or 5 years. There's no specific outcomes, but it's a very strategic thing that you want to do to come out with those overview of things. If you like to design, you like to brainstorm, you like to put notes up on the wall, a whole lot of things. You're very creative. You like to do those kinds of things that allow you to have some kind of freedom to develop those kinds of things in a design sort of way. If you like to develop, you're someone who likes to do process and outcome. We're now getting to the outcome sort of things. Very much process and outcome. Program managers are someone who develop things. They develop a whole list of things and might give it to other people to execute, but they're the ones that develop the process for that. That is what development is. Implementation, execution. Now I want to take whatever you've developed in the process and I want to get it done. I like short-term goals. Tell me what you need me to do and I will do it. I'm not really interested in strategy so much because I want something very concrete, very logical, very detailed. And then if you like evaluation, you're somebody who likes perhaps things IT-wise. You like coding things into a computer, developing spreadsheets, putting those kinds of things together. You like that kind of generation of process things that you put together to evaluate, not analyze, but to evaluate on those. So those are 7 different words. And when you pick the ones out that you have, I usually say the analysis and strategy and design are more architects. And not that they want to be architects, but they have that architectural way of looking at things. And evaluate, implement, and execute are more execution people. Development can be in the middle. And so if you have one or more of those, just a couple of them that you like, those are ones that you want to look at. These are also the top 7 words in job descriptions. So if you chose analysis strategy or you chose design and development, you go and look for some jobs now, go into built-in, go into LinkedIn, look at different jobs, all kinds of different jobs, and look at coming up with the bullet points that start, we want you to analyze, we want you to strategize, we want you to develop. If you find a job that says we want you to implement and execute a lot or evaluate, not the job you're looking for. So this is helpful in beginning to find out what you want to do next and finding something that aligns with your motivation, which is a very important piece to have. Then I'm going to talk about purpose. What is purpose? Well, it's fulfillment. It might be work-life balance. It is finding meaning in work. It's values that you use to define what's absolutely important to you. Absolutely. You can use that VIA assessment to look at some core values, but that's how you do it. When I'm working with clients and we're talking about purpose, a lot of times they'll say, I don't know. I don't know what my purpose is. I'm not sure what that is. So many times I will have them look at this United Nations 17 goals. So I'm going to click on it and see if you can see this. I hope all of you can see this goal sheet. Yes, hopefully. There are 17 goals the United Nations puts out. So I have people look at all 17 of these and decide which ones might be interesting. Maybe you would, if nothing else mattered, money didn't matter, none of that, what really interests you? Is it water, climate action? Oh, maybe it's sustainable buildings. Maybe it's economic growth. Maybe it's clean energy. Maybe it's hunger. Maybe it's education, sanitation. It could be any of those, but there are things you can click on to get a little more information on these. But it's a great way for people to begin to say, well, I'm really interested in education. I would love to do something in education. I've never done anything like that, but I would really like to do it. So we will now together go, and you would go and look at some organizations that are doing things with education. It doesn't have to be being a teacher. There are many organizations that do lots and lots of different things on education. So I have people do that so that they can then decide, decide kind of what they want to do on doing that. So when I'm talking about purpose, I'm talking about what are you really interested in at your core? What really, really interests you? Very, very important piece of that. So when I look at the next slide, it has to do with mindfulness. Mindfulness has to do with your mindset, how you're thinking about this whole thing of going out and getting a job. There are growth mindsets and there are fixed mindsets, and there's things in between. When I work with college students, oftentimes I will run across students who are straight A students. They've done everything right. They're in the top of their class. And 9 times out of 10, they have a very fixed mindset because they don't want to, juggle the boat at all. They don't want to do anything that's going to make a difference that might be negative. So they don't want to think outside the box at all in anything they want to do. The growth mindset people tend to think a little more outside the box. But I tell both of them when they say something like, well, I've never done anything in climate change. I don't know anything about that. I ask them to just say, not yet. Because you don't now, but that doesn't mean you won't very shortly. So it's not I don't know something, it's I don't know it yet. You can journal, you can do meditation. There's lots of breathing exercises that I suggest people do before they go in for an interview. In fact, if you're going in person, I always suggest that you go down 15 minutes ahead of time, go into one of the restrooms, go into the stall, shut the door, and then do power poses. Like your Superman or Superwoman, power poses out there. Then do that for about 30 seconds, then come out and do your interview. If you're doing it online, do the same thing before you sit down in front of Zoom. It really helps you get that mindset together with how you're presenting. And then be sure and direct your mind. I do New York Times games every day. They're great for memory. They're great for creativity. You're obviously looking for jobs, but take a few minutes out to do something like that, because that will enhance the things that you're trying to think about. It's important to know healthy boundaries. Looking at a job, interviewing for a job, and boy, what they're saying doesn't sound exactly right, but you've done this job before, so I guess you just put up with it. At this point in time, you have the opportunity right now to choose a place that has healthy boundaries, that gives you the ability to go and do things yourself, that has collaborative teamwork, that things you're not going to know everything from an interview, but there's questions you can ask and things you hear. And all of you have been working long enough to know when you hear that one that's like, oh, I'm going to do this again. We've all had it. Resilience, stress. We're all dealing with stress right now, but stress doesn't have to be totally negative. It can help you build some resilience to things that you're doing. And knowing your feelings and the emotions of others when you're listening to them, thinking about what they're saying instead of what I have to say next, which we have a very big habit of doing. So now what I want to do is I want you to take some action on this. I want you to develop a job framework here. I want you to go and find 10 jobs that would interest you, as diverse as you possibly can from anywhere. And in those jobs, I want you to read the bullet points. And when you find one that you've already done and you want to do again, or you haven't done but you want to do, cut and paste it onto another document. Do that for all 10 jobs. You'll have about 1.5 pages to 2 pages of this cut and paste things. Look at the duplicates, things that you're going to see jobs, they repeat them over and over again on things. So consolidate those together. And then select 12 to 18 bullet points that describe what you want to do. It's just a general framework of what you want to do. Put those 12 to 18 on a third document, a separate page with your name, your email, your phone. No job title, just those 3. So now when you're talking to someone and they say, well, what are you looking for? You can hand this to them or send this to them and say, I don't know what this is called, but this is a general idea. It doesn't have everything of what I would really like to be doing. And what I'd like to know from you is, what do you call this in your organization? And who should I talk to about it? Those are the 2 questions you want to ask. So when you say, what do they call it in their organization? They might say, well, 3 of these bullet points don't cover, but these 9, absolutely, we call that the XYZ job. And yeah, I do know somebody can talk about it. It is so helpful when you're talking just to friends or doing the N word, the networking. I don't like it. I call it connecting. Don't like that word, networking at all. But when you're connecting with other people, you want to be able to have something to talk to them about what you're looking for. And when you've cut and paste these onto a document that's written in job speak, people can read it. I can't tell you how helpful it has been from clients I've worked at to be able to go in and talk to someone about this. I have multiple people that have been hired just out of talking their job framework because they feel like they really know what they want. And it really helps you begin to frame when you're talking about it, but also, even if you want to stay in HR, go and look at some HR job, get the bullet points out there, understand the top ones you want to have so you can really talk about them. A little bit about resumes and cover letters. Resumes, as I said, are about work, not just paid work. If you are going to be in the same field that you were before, you're going to do a chronological resume and put the things that you have done in there. Make sure every bullet point on your resume starts with an action word or a power word. Also, make sure every single things that you have on that chronological resume, on the job that you have done, past jobs, all should be in past tense. I cannot tell you how many times people do past jobs. Some of it's in present, some of it's in past. I have 2 HR people I work with that say they throw them away if they do that, because I don't want to see that at all. Don't use a creative resume with your picture on it unless you're going to become an actor. That's the only time you would need a picture on there. Put things in there in chronological order from the latest job you've had down. Only bold your job title, not where you worked. And when it gets down to education, only bold your degree and not where you went to school. That way, if the 7 seconds that somebody looks at a resume, they can see it right through to there. So these are very important things. The biggest thing people forget is putting their email on there. I don't know why, but I find so many that forget their emails. Make sure you spell check and what you have somebody else read it. It's always a very helpful thing to do. And then if they're looking for cover letters, not everybody's looking for them any longer, but if they want some, I only use the 2-column cover letter. It's the only ones I ever use. You can go in and search 2-column cover letter. It starts at the top and says, you know, thank you, I'm applying for this particular job and I'm attaching my resume that summarizes. And then there are 2 columns. One of them says I provide and the other one I offer, and the other one said, you know, you require. So what's under I offer are things that I know that I can offer. What's under you require is you're pulling it right out of the job description. What do they require? And then you can answer back on there. So it's just 4 or 5 of those pulled from the job description, then saying, thank you very much. Look forward to hearing from you. I'll contact you next week, whatever it is. Simple, easy for people to read, easy for people to understand. And I do have HR people that tell me all the time, I wish I got more of these because they've already told me why they're qualified. I don't have to try to weed through their resume for everything. So it's a really helpful thing to do in that realm as well. Connections, that thing you just talked about here, I call them connections. And I don't use that N word. I think it is very scary. And I think it's not what most people are comfortable and confident doing. So you have your job framework. You can go and hand that to someone and say, here's what I'm looking for, and let them read it. You can reach out on LinkedIn to people. Somebody talked about that earlier. You can definitely reach out to people that you know in a company. You can not reach out and send messages, but even you find somebody that's in a company that you're interested in, you can connect with them and send a little connection thing so that you can then set something up with them. So use your strengths, use your values, and research. Those are important things when knowing, pardon me, knowing why you're interested in a career. Very, very important to know and do that. Networking, I put over here, because if you're going to do something, talk about connections. Don't talk about just going out and handing a business card or your resume to everybody. What do you want to know from this company? When you're going to go and look at this next week, or what's happening with Boulder, what do you want to know about that company? What do you have them answer some questions for you, you know, in terms of how they are collaborative, how they work with teams, a lot of different questions you can ask. You can ask pay. Please ask pay. Ask, but don't say, what do you pay for someone who's a project manager? Don't say that. Say, what is your salary range for project management positions? And they can give you a range. They'll oftentimes say, well, what range are you looking for? So you need to have a range on that as well. So 1 step at a time. This quote of take your career into your hands to discover real happiness and success. Yes, you can have both in a job. I think is really, really important. So thank you. Hopefully that was helpful, and I'll open it up to questions. Are we there? Did I lose everybody?
I raised my hand. I have a question. This is Tanya.
Okay, good. I'm just clearing everything off my screen so I didn't see that.